Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX. With me is David Finkelstein, BDEX's co-founder and CEO. Hi, David. How's your week been?
Hey, Jesse. It's been a busy week so far, but it's good to be live and be back here, and I'm looking forward to talking analytics with our guest today.
I know, yes, we are very lucky. Today we get to talk to Prashant Mehta, founder and CEO of Ficus Analytics, who is passionate about expediting the discovery of insights for business leaders. Ficus is a cloud-native B2B augmented analytics platform that provides AI-based personalized recommendations enriched with context and deep analysis. So I'm very excited to talk to him. Let's bring him on in. Hi, Prashant. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jesse. Hey, David. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to it. Why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your story and what led you to start Ficus, and a little bit more about Ficus itself and how you help out your customers.
Sure. So, as Jesse introduced, I'm Prashant, founder of Ficus Analytics. Our North Star is to help companies make better data-driven decisions and provide insights in a more personalized way. Right. So I've been in data space, in the data science space, even before the term data science was cool. Right. And we used to call it just analytics. Right. And through this process, right, I've seen how technology has transformed what I call the creation of analytics. So, what would earlier take, a months in creation of analytics would now take probably days. What is lacking is the consumption of analytics, right? We are still left with people looking at dashboards to manually figure out what's going on in the business, right? And that's what we are fundamentally, trying to improve. That, the next set of improvements in the space is going to be in the consumption side. So, prior to Ficus, I used to lead an organization in Apple supporting analytics and data science for multi-billion-dollar P&L of the company. And prior to that, I used to be a consultant for a Sequoia-funded unicorn serving Fortune 500 customers.
That's awesome. So it certainly sounds like you have the experience. So talk to us about what it means. What does consumption of analytics really mean? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So once, I was on a vacation to Big Sur. Have you guys been to Big Sur?
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's one of my favorite places. I keep going to that. It's my place. It's my personal space, right? So me and my wife were on a vacation to Big Sur, right, with like blue sea on one side and like sprawling hills on the other. And I get a call from my business partner saying, "Hey, we realized that the sales of a particular part of our business was down. And why is that? And there is an investor meeting soon, so we need to figure that out." And I was like, okay. So I summoned my team together, figured out what was going on, and provided the insight. Right. We had taken that vacation for after a long time, so I was really looking forward to it. Right. And I thought, hey, this is going to break our marriage.
Yeah.
Fortunately, our marriage is still intact. But what I realized is that, hey, there must be a better way of doing things. Right. That, if we had known what was going on earlier, if my business partner had known what was going on earlier, they would not have to wait for these last minute, scrambling. And I'm sure like a lot of people listening to this podcast would resonate with like the amount of scrambling people do with respect to analytics and data, last minute thing, and figuring out like why something changed. More often than not, people won't have time to do all these diagnostics. So how can we make, discovering those insights more easy, right? Where, 20 years ago, the problem was, do we have data or not, right? Today, we have a lot of data, and, the problem is how can we discover insight in a more frictionless way? So that, and, sow the seed of what eventually turned out to be, Ficus Analytics.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem today, right? I mean, everybody's, like you said, the problem used to be we don't have the data. Now the problem is not we don't have the data. Everybody has the data. They have access to it. A lot of them don't know how to get it. They don't know how to analyze it. They don't know how to formulate it into a decision making process, right?
Right.
And so, anything that can help them improve that process of actually taking these massive volumes of data that people are currently, experiencing and getting overwhelmed with, and turning it into something that's actionable is super impressive and super important, from a business standpoint going forward.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, data, they say data is the new oil, right? Or data is money. It is actually a treasure. And the problem is that we have created a treasure hunt around it, right? To get into that treasure. And we want to be the anti-treasure hunt, people like, hey, let's cut through the treasure hunt. Let's get to the, insight as soon as we can get.
Yeah, you're the treasure chest, right? I mean, they found it.
Yeah.
They need to open it. That's all, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
And there's a lot of bad data out there. So there's a lot of, bad money, I guess, or bad treasures out there. So you got to fish through it to even find it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, anything else you'd want to add on this topic of making the consumption of analytics frictionless?
Yeah. So, all through my career, right, one of the uh, one perspective that I've developed, right, is that there are, what I call the creators, right? People who are data scientists, analysts, uh, statisticians. Hey, I heard a joke which said, data scientists are statisticians on Mac. Um, the term has been evolving, I guess, but um, anyway, so those are the people who would crunch numbers, right? Create insights, and then there are consumers, who are business leaders or marketing leaders, finance leaders, who would want to consume insight and make decisions on the business, right? Fundamentally, we believe that the consumption is frictionless when there is harmony between these two players. Right today, I feel a lot of innovation is going on each individual entity, but nothing that improves the harmony.
Mm.
Improving the harmony, right? And it is a combination of culture, on how culture is set up, right tools, obviously, right, and which is where Ficus comes in, but having the right set of tools, and also education. So, I mean, if you may have noticed, like right now, there are so many courses that are out there for like managerial decision making, on like educating people to consume data and insight more effectively. So, I feel like a combination of these aspects is what would make consumption of analytics frictionless.
I really like how you put that.
Yeah.
Build the harmony. It,
Yeah.
it always comes down to culture. I feel like there's so many guests where we've talked about many different aspects of data, and it's keeping data clean, or making it more easy to interpret. It always just comes down to culture. So it's so interesting.
Yeah, and another interesting thing, right, about culture is that, I grew up in India, and there are two states in India, right, and they share a river, and the two states are in harmony when there is a lot of water in the river. When there is lack of water in the river, right, is when the conflict starts. I feel a lot of conflict, right, that we see in culture, in a company, is also driven by, do we have the flow of river, right? Are we all equipped with the right tools so that then people can come collaborate and create value?
That's really beautifully put. You can't think of a better way to think of it, and then of course you need a lot of data to make sure that you don't have, a conflict in culture.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
without data, you're just another person with opinion, right? So
Yeah.
but you do want to make sure it's quality data, because there's just so much garbage out there these
that's
days.
right. That's right.
That's right. Well, shall we move on to this next topic? It's kind of fully loaded. We were talking about pre-show with a bunch of different things, but we'll try to cover it all. Understanding the entire customer journey is key to marketing, and then also transitioning and confounding factors in advertising data. So could you kick us off on these topics?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so traditionally or popularly, right? So marketing has been focused on, you know, getting to the right customer, giving them the right product at the right time, right? And we often talk about what is called, marketing funnel. Um, uh, I think that's great. That's a great start. But I think if we think of our times like today, right, challenging times, macro environment, that's out there, it's important to win the customer again and again, right? So what is a marketing funnel quickly translates into actually a loop that once somebody bought my product for the first time, how do I keep that person engaged, keep that person satisfied with the product and the services, no matter what I'm selling, and then have them purchase again, right? Get them onto the loyalty loop. So as we think of customer journey, we want to start with when somebody is just considering that, hey, maybe I need a computer to buy, right? From that point to like, hey, I'm evaluating between product A, B, C, to getting them to our product, but also, right, taking them to the loop so that next time when they want to purchase a computer or recommend a friend for a computer or a service for a computer, right, we track the whole journey. I think that entire visibility of the customer journey is going to be super critical, and companies that will track that and influence that are going to win, right? And those that won't, it's going to be hard.
It's a great point. I think it's important to understand and for people to listen to that, because the customer journey for many in the past ended when the purchase was made. But how often do you really want to make a one-time purchase? You don't want your customer to buy from you once. You want them to come back. It's very rare that you have one-time purchases. Even if you're talking about a purchase that may happen every 2 or 3 years, like a car or something like that, you still want them to come back. And same thing with a computer. You might not buy a computer every year, but you want them to come back. And so what's really interesting about that is that data from the point of after they make the purchase, that's first party data. You have easier access to that data than the data before the purchase. And so it becomes even more important to make sure that you're harnessing that first party data in a way that makes it actionable so that you can continue to, to get that repeat customer back again.
Yeah, and in a lot of companies, right, these reside in silos. So there's a different team that's doing fulfillment. There's a different team that's responsible for retention. There's a different team that's responsible for acquisition, and so rightly so, right? But the data is also then siloed. So bringing these data together and doing those fuzzy matches, right? Even if it won't be perfect, but getting something that is useful is going to be more important.
Yeah, and we talk about that all the time, the importance of first party data, from a, perspective, from the point of, marketing and advertising, that you need to know enough, as much as you can about your existing customers. And the more you learn about your existing customers, the more power you have to not only win them back, but get more customers like them. And so, we've been talking for years. When everybody else is talking about how do I find new customers, we've been telling people for years the best way to start is looking at your own customers, and doing that analysis of your own customers, and then using BDEX to find more people like your best customers, because that's pretty much what our product, our audience AI product does. And so it's really great to hear you say that, because we believe in that importance.
It goes back to the paradigm between like where to play and how to play. So a lot of companies focus on like how to play. I think how to play is important, but what is more important is figuring out where to play. And once we figured where to play, right, then how follows, right, and we can incrementally do better there. But if we get the where to play wrong, it's a bigger mess to clean up at a later point.
That's all great stuff. And it's so true. As a marketer, we get so caught up in trying to bring in new leads and understand who they are coming in, that once they're in, it's so easy to forget about. But especially in SaaS, you're not going to recoup the cost of bringing that customer in if you only get them to close one time. So it is extremely important to get them to close multiple times. So yeah, great information, and we can share more about Omni IQ, but that's definitely a really great way to learn about your existing audience, especially if they're consumers. But I guess we have a little bit, we got a comment here from David. I'm not sure that we addressed, and it looks like we've got a couple viewers on YouTube, and someone just said hello. So hello to him. But anything you want to add here about, how do you make sure you have quality data? Because earlier we were talking about, you want to make sure you have a lot of data. So sometimes when you say we want to make sure you have a lot of data, depending on who you're saying that to, they might be thinking, if you give me a lot of data, it's going to be a lot of messy data. Yeah. And so it can scare people. So how can they make sure, David, that they have a lot of quality data?
Well, yeah, that's a challenge for sure. And again, it depends on what kind of data you're talking about. And so you have to know how to analyze the data that you're looking at, whether it means, comparing it to other data assets, or whether you're looking at within your own data assets and looking for outliers. But the quality of the data is super important. It's something that we at BDEX take a lot, do a lot to sort of manage that aspect, because there's so much fraudulent data in the ad tech ecosystem, and so we look at literally trillions of data sets per month and do an analysis of all of that data to try to, one up the fraudsters and identify those IDs that are linked to ad fraud. If we can identify those IDs that are linked to ad fraud and remove them, then literally just doing that alone, we've written a white paper that showed that just by removing those fraudulent IDs, we were able to increase the performance for our advertisers by 43%. And so that gives you an idea of how much bad data is out there affecting the ad tech ecosystem. So that's super important, and something that needs to be addressed. And I think that it all depends on the data that you're looking at. And often it takes a lot of data. It takes looking at a lot of data in order to do that analysis, to try to figure out what's good and what's bad. You can't always look at just your own data set. Sometimes you have to compare it to other data sets to get the full picture. You're on mute, Jesse.
Sorry about that. I was just saying absolutely, and seeing if there's anything Prashant might want to add to that, or summarize anything else on this second topic here.
Yeah, no, I agree with David, right? It's an ongoing process, right? There is no constantly be at it, right? To make sure that the data is the cleanest one can get.
Absolutely. I think you cut out there, and it may have been my fault. So sorry about that. Do you want to repeat what you just said, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no, I said, having clean data or quality data is a continuous process, and it's not, a one-time fixed thing. So one has to, be at it and make sure, be vigilant about it, right, all the time. So.
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely. Well, anything either of you want to add on either of these topics that we have here in topic 2?
I mean, the only other thing I would add is just when we talk about understanding the customer journey, that is getting more and more challenging with the limitations of tracking data and things like that, but also the fact that people are consuming data in multiple, or consuming information that is generating data in multiple locations, whether it be their computer or their phone or their tablet or now their TV as well. And so the challenge continues to get even more complex to understand the customer journey across all of these different systems. And so, more and more technology needs to get involved because we have so much data. And I think that, when you're looking at, doing analytics against data tied to the customer journey, you're having to pull in data from so many different locations, and you have to realize that, all that data exists and is coming in from many channels these days.
Absolutely. Well, I guess, now that we're summing up that topic, we get into my favorite topic, ChatGPT and other large language models and analytics. This is the talk of the town. Everybody's using ChatGPT. ChatGPT just did a big upgrade. Prashant, what's your take on ChatGPT? Can you kick us off on this?
Yeah, I love it. So I've been one of the early users, and I literally use it literally every day. It's a game changer, right? And for people who are who take more time to like write out content, this is a game changer. For that. Uh, I'm especially interested in the application of these large language models in analytics, and how that could transform again the way people would consume insight. um, but there are several factors one has to consider, right? So two that are very interesting that I feel is very specific about analytics, that these large language models should consider. First is precision, right? So sometimes for analytics, precision is important, and for some problems it's more important than the other, right? But there is a level of precision that is expected out of analytics, and it will be interesting to see how these models evolve to provide those precise answers. um, that's going to be a major factor in deciding if this gets used in analytics or not. The second is trust. I have seen situation where you ask, hey, how many customers you have, and depending on who you ask, you get like different answers, and those answers are widely different. So how do you trust an answer from a large language model like ChatGPT? I think that is something that will have to be figured out, right? I think I was looking at Microsoft's ad, right, and they have some annotations that they provide. I think that's a good step, but something that says, hey, trust this because I'm saying this to you, right? I think that needs to be cracked. But I'm excited, right? We are in really early stage of this journey, and I can't wait to see how this unfolds.
So yeah, trust is an interesting one. We've. I think that when you look at using ChatGPT for content, which a lot of people are doing, right? And so they're saying, "Hey, write me a story," or "Hey, write me an article," "Write me a LinkedIn post," whatever. Um, there's, there have been some challenges because the content that it necessarily writes is not always accurate. Because personally, I think it's because the volume of data that it has access to is so large right now that there is conflicting information within that data set. And so, for example, we did, doing a simple test and asking it even just about BDEX, it didn't come back with the right location where the company was founded. It didn't know who the founders were. All of this is publicly out there. And it's possible that there may have been some conflicting information. Maybe they saw something else that looked like it was BDEX, and so they found a different city or whatever it is for our location. So I'm curious, because here's where you get the trust issue. You can ask it a question and you don't necessarily know that the answer is correct. But when you're applying it to analytics, you can seed it with data, right? So you can say, here's my sample data. Here's the data that I want to analyze, and here's what I'm trying to figure out. Can you do this analysis for me? And so the output of that should be from the data that you're seeding it with, and no outside information. So then, in theory, like David Welburn is saying, the AI does not know how to think. It's based on the data that you're seeding it. So I'm curious, from your experience, having played with it with analytics, if you seed it specific information and then you ask it to do something for you, how have the results been? Like, has it produced the results you expected?
I think that's a great point, right? And going back, I think something you mentioned earlier, right, about outliers and fraudsters and things like that. So it really depends on what data is fed in, right? And for the interesting thing is, like in most business applications, right, the same data set is used for different business purposes, and it would be you know, wrangled differently based on the use case. uh, so depending on who you are and your definition of churn, the within the same organization from the same data set, the churn definition, the churn numbers could be different, and all of those could be right for that context. I think that is where, chat gpt, or these large language models would fail, right? Because by definition, the design of it is it gives one answer,
Mhm.
right? But when it is about perspective, about, let's say, drivers, right? Like now, drivers, there could be different kinds of drivers, depends on how you look at things and what's important and what's controllable and not, and all that. This is where, that a data scientist today provides that trust that, hey, I'm an expert in this field. I've looked this through, and here's what it means. For chat gpt to do something like that, I think that trust needs to be built, right? So it has to be an interplay between an actual data scientist working and training chat gpt, right? So using that as a tool to provide information and insight quicker, right? I think that is where it may end up, heading.
So you heard it here. You still need a human involved with these tools. And I wouldn't disagree. I use ChatGPT myself, but sometimes I find it takes more time because you have to train it and then you have to retrain it and then you still don't get it right. So you end up rewriting it anyway. So it's not perfect. But yeah, this is great. And, considering ChatGPT and all its functionality, everybody is able to just log in and try it now. So AI is at the fingertips of consumers right now. And everyone's getting a taste of the power of AI. And so, when you think of what you see when you use ChatGPT, just think of, what it can do, AI can do otherwise in terms of like understanding your target audience and expanding your target audience, or really anything. I mean, every industry has, multiple uses of AI, but ChatGPT is just really putting it at the fingertips. So it's interesting.
I mean, another thing to think about here is data privacy. So when,
Mm,
you know th- the data is uploaded to, OpenAI server, right, for ChatGPT to analyze and point results at. I think that is something, those data privacy policies will need to be ironed out, right? I mean, I know we are still in very early stages, but for something like, and again, I use ChatGPT more as a shorthand for large language models. But as these large language models evolve, I think data privacy is going to become key.
yeah.
That's definitely true. There's always already been some discussion about the fact that ChatGPT is essentially using content that is other people's content from their websites or whatever, and while that content may
Mm.
be public information that anybody has access to, ChatGPT is repurposing it, and so there has been a lot of controversy and discussions about whether they have the right to repurpose that data or not. It's certainly interesting.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that is very interesting.
Hmm.
Oh man, and all these all these issues will come up in other applications, I'm sure too. Just if you think about different uses of AI, but GPT is going to be the first, paving the way. Anything else on Chat GPT or AI at the fingertips of consumers, or large language models before we move into tech stacks?
No, I mean, just, we've mentioned this before, but, I think it's important to mention again that, ChatGPT is the AI that everybody is, hands-on today using. But, it's important to recognize that there are, hundreds of other AI applications that might not actually be hands-on, that have been used for years. I mean, Facebook's been using it for years, right? Google uses it in their algorithms. Amazon as well, and now there's new, across the ad tech ecosystem. There's companies all over the place that are using AI and machine learning to try to decide what type of ad to show you, whether it be which creative to show you in a pool of creatives, or whether it be which advertisers. So there's a lot of it being used out there, and I'm sure there's a lot that I don't even know about in the financial industry and healthcare and all these other industries that I'm not as familiar with. But with respect to the ad tech and marketing industries, there's a ton of other technologies out there that we're exposed to every day, and we don't even know about it. And so ChatGPT is bringing AI to light because it's hands-on and people can play with it. But I think it's important to remind people that it's out there and it's doing a lot of things for us today.
And there's nothing to be scared of.
Not yet.
I did a fun project over the weekend with generative AI. So I basically, asked the AI to create an oil painting.
Nice.
So I said, hey, I described I want A, B, C thing. I want it this way, that way. It actually just created an oil painting for me, which I have it in my living room. You don't see it here, but
that's cool. And then you can go and you can get it printed on a canvas too, right? So you just
exactly.
There you go.
I thought you were going to say that you were the one that created that generative AI image of Trump getting arrested. I don't know if you've seen that one that's been going around, but yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I saw the one where Trump was with Biden and playing golf.
I didn't see that one.
Well, we'd love to hear what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack? This is something that we ask all Deconstructing Data guests, and we'd love to hear from you too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, so my top favorite is Ficus. If you're doing anything with data, and you need a great augmented analytics platform to derive insight out of it, Ficus is the way to go. ChatGPT is another favorite of mine. The third is probably is going to be a category of product. Let's call it data warehouse. So Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, name it. I feel that's super critical, right? A lot of companies I've seen are having data silos, and they don't invest in a central data warehousing where they can pipe all the data together. So a lot of what we talked about, right, AI or customer journey or biases in data, all that use cases becomes apparent, right, when all the data is in one place. So pick your favorite data warehouse, but I think that's one of my favorite tools as well.
Nice.
Awesome.
Change the angle there. Yeah, I'm going to type those up and plug those in on LinkedIn. But I don't think anyone's ever mentioned ChatGPT on here, David. I think that's the first.
As their tech stack. No, we've talked about it plenty, but no one's put it in their tech stack. So great.
Yeah,
that's Excel. I love Excel.
That's awesome, and appreciate that. So maybe you're just the first to really either be using ChatGPT or the first to admit that you're using ChatGPT. We'll never know. All right. Well, I suppose we have time to get into some of the post-topic questions. And I noticed on one of my posts, there was someone asking again, to make sure that we get to these. And so we'd love to hear from you, Prashant. A little bit about your background, and if you could go back to when you first started working in data and analytics, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself back then?
Yeah. So I'm an engineer by training. I worked at Motorola right after engineering. I was building, I think, 5G system when the world was in 2G. So did that, but then data was the new oil, and jumped into the data bandwagon by joining a consulting firm. I think the biggest piece of advice I would have for anybody getting into this is to really understand the basic concepts. It is easier than ever before, right, to build a neural net, right, to build a recursive neural net model or whatever, right? It's so easy right now, right? So the technology piece, right, the how piece is getting easier and easier. I think what would really differentiate good data science people from like great data science people is really understanding the concepts. And understanding how things works in the back end. I think that's going to be critical.
Mm. Does that like go into kind of the difference between a data engineer and a data scientist? Because I keep hearing, that we're going to be at a lack of data engineers. So then you're talking about, you think what's going to set data scientists apart are those that need.
I use that generically, but that's true for even data engineers, right? Like the tools that they're going to be using today most likely are not going to be around, 5 years, 10 years, in the future. So the tools will keep changing, but understanding the core concept of, how a relational database work, or, what in concept is a data lake, right? And when to use what. Where would I use, like, let's say, streaming architecture versus a batched architecture, right? I think those concepts, just like abstract, core concepts, are going to be incredibly useful.
Gotcha.
Right, I mean, the tools are going to change, right? But having that basic understanding is going to be a huge differentiator.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the tools always change.
Yeah.
It's ever changing. If you're in any form of tech, right,
Right.
things stay the same, and it changes at a rapid pace for sure.
All the time. We're on StreamYard, and every week I'm like finding new features, and I'm like, wow, there's just new things I don't know of all the time. So you always have to keep up. And it seems like, especially in marketing, but I suppose everybody probably says that. So going off that, Prashant, are there any lessons you've learned along the way from, past jobs, maybe at Apple, or, your current role at Ficus Analytics that you think everyone should know?
I think it has to be it has to be the partnerships, right? So be it my job as a consultant, as at Apple, at Ficus, I think focusing a lot on partnerships and building relationship with colleagues is going to be critical. I think I underinvested in that, especially early on in my career, because as a early stage person, I used to think, hey, my work should speak for myself, right? And if I do great work, that should be enough. But I think great work is really just tickets to play, right? And what is important is having those relationships, building those trusted partnerships is going to take the career in for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a colleague. He knows his name out there. That would say that your net worth is your network.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely heard that before too.
Yep.
Yes, and social capital. It's another term that I hear a lot, especially in the world of social media. Is your financial capital is one piece of value, but your social capital can help lead to your financial capital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, anything else you might share with our audience about your background, Prashant, and how you were able to, work at Apple and then come to create Ficus Analytics?
Yeah, I mean, so working at Apple is one of the one of the things I cherish a lot. It was amazing. The one thing I would I would talk about is just you know uh, what's the term for it, right? Having a giver mindset, uh, approaching a situation where figuring, like, thinking about it, like, how can I add value to it versus what can I do about it, right? So one of our professors from business school has this very interesting TED talk about givers and takers. And I think it's absolutely important to practice that, right, ourselves, but also reciprocate when somebody is practicing that. So I think for me that has been something that has given me a lot of personal satisfaction, and potentially may have helped me in my career as well.
That's a great point. That same person that told me that your net worth is your network. I remember when I first met him, and he offered to do something for me, and it was just like, introduced himself and said, how can I help you? Is there something I can do for you? Is there someone I can introduce you to? Can I help you? How can I help your business? And that always stuck with me. His philosophy is always exactly that: be a giver, and the more he gives, the more he gets. And so with every new person that he meets, he approaches that person from the point of view of, what can I do to help them?
Yeah.
And if I can help them in some way, then
Oh no, did we lose you, David? I think he froze.
Yeah.
I know what he's saying though.
I'm still here.
You're there? We lost you.
All right, you got me back?
We got you back.
Okay, yeah. So that's his whole concept. His whole concept has always been be a giver, and it's it's great. It's a great thing, not only just from a personal perspective of being a good person, but it always he always wins in the end from it. Because everybody sees him as a great person that's willing to give and be helpful.
Yeah.
Same for companies, right? As companies think of the product, right? I mean, a lot of times, like I obviously think about how is this really making life of our customer better, right? It's not about quarterly targets, or how can I hit that financial goal. I mean, that will take care of itself, but what really matters is how can we add value to our customers as well, right? As company thinking about it from a giver standpoint.
And us, founders with our team, I always try to take the perspective with our team, like, how can I help you do your job? That's my job as CEO and founder of the company. Like, my job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to, empower you and help you do your job as well as you can. And that's always, an approach that I've tried to take as well, because, it works, and it's real. It's genuine.
Servant leadership. It's very important. We were just talking about that last night. And yeah, David, you are great at that. So I definitely am grateful. And I love where this conversation went, all about giving, because really at the end of the day, that's what business is about, is helping people, right? Solving problems and helping people and adding value. And it's so much more fun when we just remember that. So thank you both for sharing those stories and bringing us all back down to earth from all the interesting technical conversations. But to wrap things up, Prashant, could you tell our listeners where they might be able to find you and how they could reach you?
Absolutely. I mean, you can email me at Prashant, my first name, that is, at ficusanalytics.com, or just find me on LinkedIn by the same Prashant Mehta name, right? Look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. Well, in closing, you can find the Deconstructing Data podcast on all major podcast apps. Of course, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, but then post-production, we make clips of these and share it on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook as well. But as we were discussing, we hope you'll check out Omni IQ, and I'll throw up the QR code here. But yeah, you can scan this QR code, or you could just, if you're listening on the podcast, go to BDEX.com and click try for free and upload some of your first party data. You can upload your CSV file of your customers, and then you'll get complimentary analytics, no credit card required, of household income, birth year, and gender. And then of course that's just to test it out, and then you can upgrade to learn more. And also use, some of the technology we were talking about to expand your audience. Use AI and machine learning to expand your audience, understand your audience, and we would love to work with you on that. So we'd also love to hear from listeners. We want to make this show better for you. So you can reach us at info@bdex.com and share your qualitative data with us so that we can make this better for you. But that's all for today. Thank you so much, Prashant, and great to see you, David.
Thanks, Prashant.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and close it out here.